All right, welcome again, everybody. So this is page 2 of lesson 2.2, so let's get started. Multiplication property of equality, okay? Same thing as the addition and subtraction property from the first page, where basically if you want to multiply something to one side, you have to do it to the other, okay? So x equals 5, and then what they're doing is they're multiplying 3 to both sides, so you get 3x and 15. Same with this one here, x equals negative 20. The division property of equality means if you're going to divide something on one side, you got it to the other. And so what happens is if you divide both these by 5, you would get x over 5 equals, and then you would do negative 20 over 5, which could be reduced down to a fourth. Now, negative 4. Now, would you do that in reality? No, but you do need to divide all the time in algebra. So we'll figure those things out as we go along. All right, so first and foremost on this, solve each equation by isolating the variable on one side, okay? So we have a couple of steps here. So I want to make sure you guys understand kind of the concepts as we go through that. This one's going to be all, it's going to be a combination of division and multiplication, okay? As we go on this path together. All right, so this very first one, what we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by 6, okay? Because what you have to understand is make sure you guys know, all right? What is, you have a variable here by itself, 6b. You got to know what is it doing. Okay, it's 6 times b. So what's the opposite of multiplication? It would be division. So in order to get this b by itself, we got to get rid of this 6. Because you guys know that 6 divided by 6 equals what? It equals 1. So that's the goal. That's what we're trying to do, is make it a 1. Not a 0, but a 1. So if you divide this side by 6, you have to do this side by 6. And then your setup would be what? You would eliminate these two, and then you'd have b equals 3 over 6, or that can be reduced to 1/2, okay? So make sure you guys do the reduction as well if you can. All right, this one here, 7 times y. So you'd divide both sides by 7, okay? And then when you do that, this 7 cancels out, and you got y equals 4. Basic stuff, okay? Now we're getting into a fraction. What I want you guys to do is we're going to do this in one shot, okay? And so what I want to teach you guys how to do is kind of get rid of fractions sometimes in one shot. And how you get rid of it is, remember, we're trying to equal 1, all right? And when you try to equal 1, you have to multiply it by its reciprocal. So you would take a 6 up here and a 5 right there. Because remember, if I draw it down here, or write it down here, 6/5, and then you have 5 over 6. Do me a favor, and if you multiply that out, what do you get? You get 6 times 5 is 30. And then the bottom here, 6 times 5 is 30, which would equal what? 1. 30 divided by 30 is 1. So that's the goal. But remember, if you do it to one side, you got to do it to the other. So over here, we're going to multiply this side by 6 over 5. Okay, so now what happens is it can reduce and simplify. So that becomes a 1. That becomes a 1, so the only thing left on this side is v, right? So we have v equals. Now, remember on this, and this is why I like teaching with the fractions, because we got to start thinking in two elevations, an upper and a lower, especially with a fraction, right? You guys are used to it, but remember we talked about the very first day that there is technically speaking, this is 30 over 1. So that's on 2 levels, but we don't really work on the upper level and the lower level, okay? Unless we run into a fraction. So we have to think of it like this. So that way you guys know that 30 times 6 would be 180. And then that's all divided by 5. Okay, hopefully you guys understand what I just did. Okay, remember it's 30 divided by 1. We just don't write the 1, right? But this is kind of simplification of it. And then you could put this in a calculator, or you could figure it out yourself. But when you do this on the setup, it's going to equal 36. Okay, 180 divided by 5 is 36. All right, let's do the next one real quick. Same thing, right? So you have 3/4. So you want to do the reciprocal, which would be 4 over 3. And then this would be times 4 over 3. Maybe if I write it like this for some of you, you might make sense. That you see everything's on a kind of an upper, and then a fraction would be on a lower level. So this cancels out, right? These 3's and this 4 cancels out. The only thing left is a w. So it's w equals, and I did not give myself enough space. Okay, now you multiply. So this would be 36 times 4. Now, there is another way to kind of do this. if you guys know cross multiplication, I'm not going to multiply 36 times 4 and then divide it by 3 because that's too hard. Because frankly, I don't know that off the top of my head. But what I do know is I can simplify this. That I can do the cross multiplication or the division like you guys used to do last year and the year before that. Now, how many times does 3 go into 36? Okay, if I divide 3 into 36, this becomes a 1, and then this would become a 12. And so it makes it easier. Then 4 times 12 is easier to do, which would be 48. Okay, try working on cross multiplication instead of doing this kind of stuff here, because we could have done it here too, right? We could have basically said, well, what is 50 divided by 5? We could have changed this to a 6, this to a 1. 6 times 6 is, we would have got the answer. All right, you guys, I want you to practice on these, please, and now. All right, same thing, pausing the video, hopefully, and working on it yourself quickly. This would be divided by 6, divided by, not 6, sorry, wrong way. Divide by 30, divide by 30. And then if you do that, this here on this side would be x, and it equals 6 over 30, which you can reduce that down to 1/5, okay? The next one over here would be divided by 3. If you do that, you get m equals, and then 15 divided by 3 would be 5. This one here, you multiply by the reciprocal, 2 over 7. So I'm going to write it like this, 2 over 7, right? Because this is over 1. And now I'm going to do a cross multiplication to make it quick. So that would be 7 goes into 28 4 times. This turns into a 1. And then 2 times 4 would be 8. If I went too fast, back it up, think about it, do it again yourself. All right, this over here would be 5 over 8. So I would go times 5 over 8 divided by 1. You can do the cross multiplication again and simplify. 8 divided into 40 would be 5 times. That turns into a 1. 5 times 5 is 25. Okay, make sure you guys should have done these on your own. All right, now I got a couple more things, but what I'm throwing in here now is the wonderful, beautiful thing, the negative. Because I know a lot of you will struggle with this, okay? So remember the rule, negative times a negative is a positive, negative divided by a negative turns positive. Those are the rules for negativity when it comes to multiplying and dividing. Okay, so what I always want to make sure you guys do as well is if you see a negative variable, take the negativity with you. Don't leave it behind, okay? So think of it as a friend that that is leaving and going away, okay? Let them take the negativity away so you're left as a positive whole letter. Okay, so what you want to do is divide, because that's multiplication. Divide by a negative, okay? So when you do that and you split this equation, negative 2 divided by negative 2 turns into a positive 1, which is what you wanted, because then you're just left with a u. And then on this side, negative and a negative turns into positive, and then you do the numbers together, it's 11. This side here, divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6. So this cancels out, makes it a positive m. However, now we have a positive divided by a negative. And so now it has to be a negative number. So we know it's going to be a negative, and then that solution is a 5. Same as we've done before. Guys, I want you to do this in one step. Multiply both sides by 3 over 4, but not a positive one because it's a negative one. Okay, so if you do that, you come over here and you go negative 3 over 4. And the reason I show you guys, because remember, it's all about how you write things, okay? Me writing it like this, hopefully you guys can see how I'm creating the second level, which makes it easier to solve, okay? If you write certain things in a certain way, it should be easier to solve for you. Okay, now you can simplify it up. So 4 will divide it into 16 4 times. So it's still a negative because that's negative 16. So negative 3 times negative 4 turns into a positive 12. All right, now the next one over here, multiply this by negative 7 over 2 by negative 7 over 2, and then I'll put a little 1 there to make sure I have that. Now you do your cross multiplication, right? 2 divided into 6 would be 3. So negative 7 times 3 would be negative 21. Simple. Okay. I'm not really skipping steps, but hopefully you guys can see what we're doing here. All right. All right. Try these ones on your own real quick. All right. For the very last, we have one more little section after this, and then this will be if. So this one here, if you divide by both sides by negative 10, this will come out to be y equals 3. Negative and a negative is a positive. 8 and 8. Y equals a negative 4. This one here, so it'll be 8 over 7 negative. So it'll be negative 8 over 7, and it's multiplication divided by 1. So I know from that point there, if I do cross multiply, that becomes a 1. That's a 3. So x is going to equal negative 24. And this last one here, if you go 2/5 negative, so this is going to be 2/5 negative. I'll put a little 1 over it like that to make it easier for you guys to understand. Cross multiply, that becomes a 1. That would be a 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 would be a 4. All right, so as we go through this, hopefully you guys see and understand, because it's going to be on the homework. On Alex, just a little tester of you. Now here's where it's going to get interesting, because we're going to have this on the quiz, because I want to make sure you guys can understand a word problem, dealing with a fraction, and solving it, which is why I don't want you to be afraid of fractions. Okay, so read through this. All right, the yearbook club had a meeting. The meeting had 24 people, okay, which is 3/4 of the club, okay? So what does that mean? What it asks is, do we know how many people are in the club? The answer is no, we do not. So that would be an X. How many people are in the club? Well, where would the 3/4 go? The 3/4 would go on the other side of the equal sign, right? Because it said that 3/4 of the total club was there. So this represents the total club. X would be the total amount of people. And then it equals 24. That's how you set these things up, okay? And so then you would simply solve this one accordingly. Scroll it up. All right, so now we got the same thing, right? As we did before, where you want to multiply both sides. So I'm going to rewrite it over here because I did a bad job there. All right, now we want to do the cross multiplication with the reciprocal, right? So this is going to be 4 over 3. So this is going to be times 4 over 3. Now put a little 1 there. Then you do your simplification. All right, how many times is 3 going to 24? This becomes a 1. This would become an 8. And then 8 times, so you get 8 times 4 is 30. So how many people are in the club? 32. Does that make sense? It should, okay? If I were to get a different number, like a number smaller than 24, you'd want to think to yourself, I don't think I did that math right. Because it said the 24 was 3/4 of the club, which means it has to be a larger number. So please make sure you guys understand that. All right, Jim is saving money to buy a game. So far he has saved $30. Which is 6/5, or 5/6, sorry, of the total cost. Okay, so we know the total cost is something over here, and he has so far saved 5/6. How much does the game cost? All right, same thing. We set it up. Now let's solve. All right, so we're going to multiply both sides by 6 over 5, by 6 over 5, and then we'll drop the little 1 down to make it easier to solve, right? So 5 goes into 6, it goes into 30 6 times. So the answer then comes out to be, and you could cross all these off and make them all 1s if you wanted, just so you know the only thing that is left is that. So 6 times 6 is? All right, so the total cost of this game is $36, okay? It's almost there. All right, what I want you guys to do is pause the video and do the last one by yourself. All right, the very last one. Juan is on his way home. In his car, he has driven 6 miles so far, which is 2/3 of the way home. What is the total length of his drive? Okay, so Juan is on his way home. He's driven 6 miles. So he has gone 6 miles so far. He is 2/3 of the way home. What is the total drive? All right, so same thing. Set it up. 3 over 2 on both sides. 3 over 2 on this side here, and then I'd put the little 1. These would all cancel out, so you only have x left, so we know it's x equals. Do the cross multiplication, okay? Make it simple on yourself to do some of the math later on. 2 goes into 6. 3 times 3 is. So he's got 9 miles to go. Ladies and gentlemen, beginnings. It's going to ramp up, and we're going to go much larger and much bigger. So please make sure you can do these problems, and if you start to struggle with any of this, you need to come see your teacher or myself immediately, okay? We'll help you. We want to, but we just got to make sure that you understand. If you have any questions, seek out your teacher or myself, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Till next time, do the Alex homework, do some studying, and good luck.